Who were these elite soldiers, the Triarii, and what set them apart within the formidable Roman army? Their name echoes through the centuries, synonymous with stoic defense and last-ditch resilience. To understand their significance, we must delve into the very foundations of Roman military organization, a world far removed from the legions we often envision. The Triarii represented the lingering embers of an older, more segmented military system, a structure gradually giving way to a more unified and standardized Roman fighting force. Before the rise of legendary figures like Scipio Africanus, and even before the Punic Wars reshaped the Mediterranean, the Roman army was a patchwork of citizen soldiers, divided by wealth and experience. This system, while effective in its time, faced inherent limitations. As Rome expanded its territorial control and encountered more sophisticated enemies, the need for greater cohesion and efficiency became increasingly apparent. The Triarii, as the rear guard and the most experienced of these citizen levies, embodied both the strengths and the weaknesses of this archaic structure. They represented a link to the past, a tradition of steadfast defense, but also hinted at the need for modernization. The very foundations upon which their role was built were beginning to shift. The pivotal figure in this transformation, the architect of a more robust and adaptable Roman military machine, was Marcus Furius Camillus. A renowned general and statesman, Camillus is credited with reorganizing the Roman army, establishing a new hierarchy based on age, wealth, and battlefield experience. This reorganization, occurring in the early 4th century BC, was not merely a cosmetic change. It redefined the roles and responsibilities of each class of soldier within the legionary structure. Camillus understood that a successful army needed more than just numbers. It required carefully orchestrated deployment of its manpower, maximizing the strengths of each individual and creating a synergistic fighting force. Within this new framework, the Triarii were elevated to a position of unparalleled importance. They were no longer just the oldest soldiers. They were specifically chosen from the wealthiest citizens, those capable of affording high-quality armor and weaponry. This economic status wasn't just about equipment. It reflected a certain level of social standing and, arguably, a degree of vested interest in the protection of the Republic. Men of property had more to lose, making them inherently more motivated to defend their land and their way of life. These men, the Triarii, were veterans of countless campaigns, possessing a deep understanding of tactics, battlefield awareness, and the crucial art of maintaining discipline under pressure. Their experience was invaluable, providing a bedrock of resilience and tactical acumen that permeated the entire legion. Their presence on the battlefield was not merely symbolic. It was a tangible assurance, a guarantee that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the Roman line would hold. They were the last line of defense, the rock against which the enemy's tide would break. Their contribution, though often invoked only in moments of dire need, was fundamental to the overall success of the Roman military enterprise, solidifying their legacy as one of the most respected and feared soldier classes in Roman history. They became a symbol of Roman grit, discipline, and the unwavering resolve to prevail, no matter the cost. The phrase ad triarios redis, it has come to the Triarii, became a proverb, signifying a desperate situation where all other options had failed, and only the most experienced and resolute could turn the tide of battle. Their legacy was thus enshrined not just in military annals, but in the very fabric of Roman language and culture. The story of Roman military prowess is often told through tales of legionary grit and tactical innovation. But behind the bravado of the front lines, a silent force stood ready, a force rarely deployed, yet profoundly important. These were the Triarii, the veterans of the legions, the stoic backbone of Roman armies. To understand their significance, we must first grasp the fundamental principles of Roman military organization. The maniple system, a revolutionary departure from earlier, less flexible formations, divided the legion into 3 lines: the hastati, the Principes, and finally, the Triarii. The hastati, young and eager, formed the first line, their role one of aggressive engagement, softening the enemy and testing their resolve. Behind them stood the Principes, seasoned veterans in their prime, ready to exploit any breakthroughs or bolster faltering attacks. But what happened when the hastati faltered? What happened when the Principes were unable to turn the tide? This is where the Triarii entered the equation, their presence dictated by the gravity of the situation. Consider the chaos of ancient warfare. Clashing shields, the roar of battle cries, the relentless push and pull of men locked in deadly combat. The front lines were brutal, a whirlwind of steel and fury. Fatigue, casualties, and unforeseen circumstances could break the resolve of even the most experienced soldiers. If the Hastati and Principes were repulsed, the Roman army faced a critical juncture. Panic could set in, a rout could begin, and the entire legion could crumble. It was in this moment of extreme peril that the Triarii were called upon. Their deployment was not a simple reinforcement. It was a signal, a declaration that the battle had reached a critical stage. The phrase, residential ad Triarios venit, meaning it has come down to the Triarii, became a proverb in Roman society, signifying a desperate situation, a last resort. The very act of calling up the Triarii was a strategic decision, a calculated risk. It admitted that the initial assaults had failed, but also demonstrated the unwavering commitment of the Roman command to victory. Unlike the Hastati and Principes who fought with the gladius, the short sword ideal for close-quarters combat, the Triarii were armed with the asta, a long thrusting spear. This weapon, requiring open-order formations, was a remnant of an earlier era of Roman warfare. Its very presence spoke a tradition of unwavering discipline and of a commitment to steadfast defense. Imagine the psychological impact on both sides. The Roman soldiers, demoralized by the failure of their comrades, would see the Triarii forming their line, their large shields and long spears presenting an impenetrable wall. This sight served as a potent symbol of resilience, a reminder that the fight was far from over, that Rome would not yield. Conversely, the enemy, perhaps emboldened by their initial success, would face a completely different challenge. The Hastati and Principes had been mobile and aggressive, their short swords designed for rapid attacks. Now, they faced a disciplined line of veterans, bristling with spears, presenting a formidable obstacle. The momentum of their attack would be blunted, their formations disrupted. The Triarii were not simply a reserve force. They were a strategic anchor, a point of stability in the midst of chaos. Their presence allowed the Roman commanders time to reorganize, to redeploy remaining forces, and to launch a counterattack. The Triarii could hold a line, buy precious time, and provide the opportunity for a renewed assault. In essence, they were the safety net beneath the trapeze act of Roman warfare. The effectiveness of the Triarii stemmed not only from their equipment and training, but also from their experience. Composed of seasoned veterans, often older men who had served for many years in legions, they had witnessed the horrors of war firsthand. They understood the ebb and flow of battle, the importance of discipline, and the critical role of maintaining formation. Their experience instilled in them a steely resolve, a refusal to break, even in the face of overwhelming odds. While direct accounts of Triarii engagements are scarce, their reputation speaks volumes. Their mere presence on the battlefield could be enough to deter the enemy or to shore up the morale of wavering Roman troops. Their commitment to holding the line, their refusal to yield, made them a force to be reckoned with. The respect accorded to the Triarii extended beyond the battlefield. In Roman society, they represented the virtues of steadfastness, discipline, and experience. They were a symbol of Rome's commitment to defending its territory and its citizens. The very phrase residential ad Triarios venit served as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, Rome possessed the strength and the will to persevere. Therefore, the Triarii were more than just soldiers. They were an embodiment of Roman values. They were the last line of defense, not just against the enemy, but against defeat itself. Their presence on the battlefield was a testament to the resilience of the Roman spirit, a declaration that Rome would not fall easily. It was this reputation, forged in the fires of countless battles, that made them a truly feared and respected force in the ancient world, a force whose impact reverberated far beyond the immediate context of the battlefield. How were they equipped to withstand the enemy onslaught? The late Roman Republic, a crucible of constant warfare, demanded soldiers who could not only fight, but endure. Among the ranks of the legion, the Triarii, veterans hardened by years of service, formed the final, unwavering line of defense. They represented a strategic reserve, a human bulwark against disaster. But what made these men so formidable? What distinguished them from their younger, less experienced comrades? The answer lies, in large part, in the superior armaments and equipment they possessed. While the Hastati and Principes, the younger legionaries, might skirmish and engage in initial assaults, the Triarii were intended to hold, to break the enemy's momentum at the point of critical failure. Their equipment reflected this purpose, an investment in quality and protection far exceeding that of their younger counterparts. It was a symbol of their veteran status, a testament to their experience, and a calculated bet on their survival. The Triarii bore expensive armor and equipment designed to resist the fiercest attacks. But was it enough to make them invincible? The answer, of course, is no. No soldier is truly invincible. But the investment in the Triarii's equipment dramatically increased their survivability and, crucially, their effectiveness in the desperate moments when a legion teetered on the brink of collapse. Their armor, while offering unparalleled protection for its time, came at a significant cost. This expense, coupled with a demanding training regime required to effectively wield their specialized weaponry, ensured that only seasoned veterans, men who had proven their worth on the battlefield, were entrusted with the role of Triarius. The vulnerability of any soldier, regardless of equipment, resided in the human element. Fatigue, fear, and the ever-present possibility of a lucky blow. The Triarii, despite their superior arms, were not immune to these factors. Their courage, however, bolstered by their confidence in their equipment and their unwavering loyalty to the Republic, often proved decisive. From the corazza musculata to the Italo-Corinthian helmet and their asta spear, their equipment reflected their status and their preparation for war. Let us delve into the specifics of the Triarius equipment. Perhaps the most visually striking piece of their panoply was the corazza musculata, a sculpted breastplate mimicking the idealized physique of a Greek hero. While some Triarii likely wore the corazza musculata, its prohibitive cost meant that many relied on more practical alternatives. These alternatives included the Lorica hamata, a mail shirt constructed from interlocking iron rings, providing excellent flexibility and protection against slashing blows, or the Lorica squamata, a scale armor constructed from overlapping metal scales sewn onto a fabric backing. The choice likely depended on the individual Triarius' wealth, preference, and availability. Regardless of the specific type, the armor provided crucial defense against the swords, spears, and axes of Rome's enemies. To protect their head, a vital target in any battle, the Triarii often wore a helmet of Italo-Corinthian design. This helmet, evolving from earlier Greek forms, offered comprehensive protection for the face and head, with cheek pieces that could be drawn down for added security. Though cumbersome, the Italo-Corinthian helmet instilled a sense of invulnerability and provided crucial protection from crushing blows. Later variations included cheek pieces that offered greater visibility without sacrificing defense. Unlike the Hastati and Principes, who favored the gladius hispaniensis for close-quarters combat, the Triarii retained the asta, a long, heavy spear. This weapon, a relic of earlier Roman warfare, was perfectly suited for their role as a defensive line. The asta allowed them to engage the enemy from a greater distance, disrupting their formations and preventing them from closing to inflict maximum damage. The weight and length of the asta demanded considerable strength and skill to wield effectively, a testament to the Triarii's veteran status. They were masters of its use, able to brace themselves and deliver devastating blows that could shatter shields and unseat opponents. Completing their ensemble were a large, oval shield known as the scutum, which provided crucial protection against missile weapons and close-quarters attacks. This shield, often reinforced with metal bosses, served as a mobile barrier, allowing the Triarii to form a virtually impenetrable wall. They also carried a gladius for close-quarters fighting if their asta was broken or lost, and a pugio, a short dagger, for a last-ditch defense. The equipment of the Triarii was more than just a collection of weapons and armor. It was a statement. It represented the best that the Roman Republic could offer, a tangible symbol of the value placed on experience and resilience. It was a testament to the importance of these veteran soldiers in the defense of Rome, a calculated investment in their ability to withstand the most brutal assaults and, ultimately, to secure victory, while not guaranteeing invincibility. The superior armaments of the Triarii undeniably made them a force to be reckoned with, a critical component of the Roman war machine, and a final, formidable barrier against utter defeat. They stood as a bulwark, not invincible, but profoundly and purposefully well-equipped. The story of the Roman military is one of constant adaptation and innovation. Nowhere is this clearer than in the dramatic shift in battlefield tactics that occurred between the early Republic and the period of Roman dominance. Understanding this evolution is key to grasping the true power of the Roman war machine and the changing role of its constituent units, particularly the veteran Triarii. But to appreciate the quinkings, we must first understand what it replaced: the phalanx. Before the Marian reforms and even before the Second Punic War, the Roman army, at its core, resembled that of its Greek neighbors, particularly the Etruscans. It relied on a heavily armed infantry formation known as the phalanx. Imagine ranks upon ranks of heavily armored men, their large, circular shields forming a near impenetrable wall. Each soldier held a long spear, the asta projecting outwards to ward off enemies. This formation was designed for a frontal assault, a crushing advance intended to break the enemy line through sheer weight and discipline. In theory, the phalanx was a formidable force. Its cohesion and mass firepower could overwhelm less organized opponents. However, the reality on the battlefield proved far more complex. The phalanx was fundamentally inflexible. Its effectiveness depended on maintaining a perfectly even front, requiring flat, open ground. Any terrain irregularity, a hillock, a ditch, even particularly dense thicket, could disrupt the lines, creating vulnerabilities that a savvy enemy could exploit. The disaster of the Battle of Allia in 390 BC serves as a stark reminder of the phalanx's limitations. Facing the invading Gauls, the Roman army, still largely organized along phalangite lines, was utterly routed. Accounts suggest that the Gauls exploited the uneven ground along the Allia River, breaking the Roman lines and causing widespread panic and carnage. This catastrophic defeat wasn't merely a loss. It was a wake-up call. The rigidity of the phalanx had been exposed, and the Republic's very survival hung in the balance. The defeat at Allia forced a painful but necessary period of self-reflection. Roman military thinkers began to analyze the shortcomings of their current system. They recognized that the close order, inflexible nature of the phalanx was a significant liability in the very terrain of Italy and beyond. They needed a system that allowed for greater maneuverability and adaptability. This realization spurred a gradual but transformative shift in Roman military organization. The phalanx was dismantled, and in its place emerged a new tactical formation, one that would define Roman military success for centuries to come. The Manipular Legion deployed in a quinkings formation. The quinkings, named for its arrangement resembling the 5 dots on a dice or playing card, was a fundamentally different approach to warfare. It broke down the legion into smaller, more agile units called manipuli. These manipuli were grouped into 3 lines: the hastati, the principes, and the triarii. Each line was composed of 10 manipuli, each with roughly 120 men, though the triarii manipuli were smaller. Crucially, the manipuli were not arranged in continuous line, but rather in a staggered, checkerboard pattern. This created gaps between the manipuli, allowing for greater flexibility and maneuverability. The hastati, the youngest and most lightly armed soldiers, formed the first line. They were tasked with initiating the engagement and softening the enemy line. Behind them stood the principes, more experienced and heavily armed, ready to exploit any weaknesses that the hastati had created. It was the Triarii, however, the veterans of the legion and the oldest soldiers, who held the crucial reserve position. The Triarii were armed with long spears, a legacy of the phalanx, but their role had fundamentally changed. They were no longer the primary assault force, but rather a solid anchor and a final line of defense. Stationed at the rear, they were there to stabilize a faltering line, to counter a flanking maneuver, or to cover retreat. Their presence provided psychological reassurance to the younger soldiers, knowing that hardened veterans stood ready to support them. The expression residential ad triarios redite, it has come down to the triarii, became a proverbial phrase meaning that the situation was dire and a last, desperate effort was required. The quinking's formation allowed for a far more dynamic and adaptable style of combat. The gaps between the manipuli allowed the Roman legionaries to maneuver around obstacles, to envelop the enemy flanks, and to exploit any vulnerabilities that arose during the battle. The stagger formation provided depth, allowing the Romans to absorb pressure and to maintain a continuous flow of fresh troops into the fight. If the hostati were pushed back, they could retreat through the gaps in the Principes line, who would then engage the enemy. And if the Principes faltered, the Triarii were there to step in and restore order. In essence, the quinkings transformed the Roman army from a static, inflexible force into a mobile, adaptable, and resilient fighting machine. The Triarii, while no longer the spirit of the attack, played a vital, strategic role in ensuring the legion's overall success. Their experience and discipline provided the backbone of the Roman army, allowing them to overcome diverse enemies and conquer vast territories. The tactical evolution from the phalanx to the quinkings was a key ingredient in Rome's rise to dominance, and the shifting role of the Triarii exemplifies this transformation. The very name, Triarii, evokes images of unwavering resolve, a final bastion of Roman strength. Their reputation, forged in the crucible of countless battles, paints them as nigh invincible warriors. But was this aura of invincibility a carefully cultivated myth, or did it reflect a tangible reality on the battlefield? This is the question we must confront to truly understand their role and eventual obsolescence. Undoubtedly, the Triarii possessed qualities that made them a force to be reckoned with. Their long years of service, often spanning a decade or more, provided them with invaluable combat experience. Their armor, heavier and more protective than that of the hostati and Principes, offered a significant advantage in close-quarters combat, and their training, rigorously focused on maintaining formation and utilizing the long asta, instilled a discipline that was the envy of many contemporary armies. Their presence on the field boosted morale, offering a tangible sense of security to younger, less experienced soldiers. The sheer sight of the Triarii holding the line could break the spirit of an enemy, knowing that they faced the most seasoned and determined of Rome's legionaries. Yet, to believe them invulnerable would be a grave error. While their equipment provided superior protection, it also came at a cost. The weight of their armor and weaponry made them less agile than the lighter troops. This lack of mobility could be a disadvantage in uneven terrain or against more nimble adversaries. Moreover, their effectiveness was predicated on maintaining formation and utilizing the asta effectively. In a chaotic melee, where formations dissolved and individual combat took precedence, the Triarii lost some of their advantage. More crucially, their role as a last line of defense, the ultima spes, the final hope, carried inherent risks. The very fact that the Triarii were deployed meant that the initial lines of hostati and Principes had failed to hold. This scenario often implied that the Romans were already facing significant losses, and that the enemy was pressing hard. Deploying the Triarii was a gamble, a desperate measure to prevent a complete rout. While their steadfastness could often turn the tide, it was not a guaranteed solution. A determined enemy, exploiting weaknesses in the Roman line, or overwhelming them through sheer numbers, could still break through even the Triarii's defenses. Instances of this happening, though rare in Roman historiography given the emphasis on success, undoubtedly occurred and should not be disregarded. Consider the Battle of Cannae, often cited as one of Rome's greatest military disasters. While the specifics of the Triarii's involvement are debated, the overall Roman defeat underscores the fact that even the most disciplined and well-equipped soldiers could be overwhelmed by superior tactics and overwhelming numbers. Even the invincible Triarii could not save the day when the very fabric of the Roman army was unraveling. The price of engaging the Triarii often involved absorbing significant losses beforehand, meaning their success came at a high cost of the overall Roman military strength. The evolution of Roman military doctrine ultimately rendered the Triarii obsolete. As Rome expanded its territories and faced increasingly diverse enemies, the rigid mandibular structure, with its reliance on distinct troop types based on age and experience, became less effective. The introduction of the Marian reforms in the late 2nd century BC named after the general Gaius Marius, marked a significant turning point. These reforms abolished the property requirements for military service, creating a professional, standing army composed of citizen soldiers who were equipped and trained uniformly. This new army, organized into cohorts and legions, prioritized flexibility and adaptability. The need for distinct classes of infantry, like the Hastati, Principes, and Triarii, diminished. The legionaries were now trained to fight in a more fluid and adaptable manner, equipped with a pilum and gladius, and capable of performing a wider range of combat roles. The cohortal legion offered a more versatile and responsive fighting force, capable of adapting to different terrains and enemy tactics. The Triarii, with their emphasis on static defense and their reliance on the long osta, simply did not fit into this new paradigm. Their slow, deliberate movements and their limited tactical flexibility were seen as liabilities in a more dynamic battlefield. While remnants of older organizational structures might have lingered for a time, the days of the Triarii as a distinct and essential component of the Roman army were numbered. Their gradual disappearance reflected a broader shift in Roman military thinking, a transition from a rigid, hierarchical system to a more professional and adaptable fighting force. The legacy of the Triarii, however, remained. Their example of courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment to duty continued to inspire Roman soldiers for generations to come, even as their specific role faded into the annals of history. They serve as a reminder that even the most formidable warriors are subject to the relentless forces of change and adaptation in the ever-evolving landscape of warfare. The annals of military history are replete with examples of battlefield success born from ingenuity, discipline, and the effective application of specialized units. Few exemplify this principle more powerfully than the Triarii of the Roman legions. These seasoned veterans, the backbone of the manipulative system for centuries, offer profound insight into the Roman military ethos and the constant adaptation that underpinned Rome's rise to dominance. To understand their legacy, we must delve into their origins, their role on the battlefield, and ultimately, the reasons for their eventual disappearance, a transition that signals a pivotal shift in Roman military doctrine. The Triarii emerged from the early Roman army, a citizen militia organized along class lines. Originally, they were among the wealthiest citizens, equipped and responsible for their own arms and armor. This system reflected a societal hierarchy where military service was inextricably linked to civic duty and economic status. Over time, this structure evolved into a manipulative system, a flexible and highly adaptable formation that divided the legion into three distinct lines: the Hastati, Principes, and the Triarii. The Triarii occupied the vital third line. They were the oldest, most experienced, and thus most reliable soldiers in the legion, dressed in full panoply, complete with heavy bronze armor, a large scutum shield, and the characteristic pilum javelin. Their most distinctive weapon was the asta, a long spear used for thrusting. Their presence on the battlefield was a testament to Roman resolve, a last line of defense intended to hold firm when all else failed. The role of the Triarii was far more than simply acting as a reserve force. They were a tactical anchor, a stabilizing presence in the chaos of battle. Their deployment was often a signal of dire straits. The phrase rem ad triarios redis, meaning it has come to the Triarii, became a proverbial expression signifying a desperate situation. It underscored the gravity of the moment when these veterans were called into action. It implied that the younger, more agile Hastati and Principes had failed to break the enemy, and the fate of the legion now rested on the shoulders of these seasoned warriors. The tactical doctrine surrounding the Triarii emphasized discipline and a steadfast defense. Unlike the Hastati and Principes, who engaged in more aggressive maneuvers, the Triarii were expected to hold their ground, forming a solid shield wall and repelling enemy assaults with their spears. Their presence provided a rallying point for the wavering ranks of the younger soldiers, allowing them to regroup and potentially renew the attack. They were, in essence, the embodiment of Roman resilience, a tangible manifestation of the determination to prevail against all odds. However, the very qualities that made the Triarii so effective also contributed to their eventual obsolescence. As Rome's military commitment expanded and the nature of warfare evolved, the limitations of the manipular system, and particularly the Triarii, became increasingly apparent. The expansion of Roman citizenship and the increasing reliance on allied troops blurred the lines between the different classes within the legion. The social distinctions that had originally defined the hastati, principes, and Triarii began to erode. Furthermore, the changing battlefield demanded greater flexibility and adaptability. The static defensive role of the Triarii was less effective against new enemy tactics and the challenges of fighting in diverse terrains. The Marian reforms, introduced by the general Gaius Marius in the late 2nd century BC, marked a turning point. Marius abolished the property requirements for military service, opening the legions to a wider segment of the population. He also standardized equipment and training, creating a professional, standing army. This standardization meant the end of the distinct manipular formations. The legion was reorganized into cohorts, larger and more flexible units that were better suited to the demands of long-term campaigns and increasingly complex military operations. The specialized roles of the hastati, principes, and Triarii were effectively eliminated, replaced by a unified fighting force trained to execute a wider range of tactical maneuvers. The disappearance of the Triarii was not simply a matter of discarding an outdated tactical unit. It signified a fundamental shift in Roman military thinking. The emphasis moved away from a rigid, class-based structure towards a more streamlined and professionalized army. This transition was driven by necessity, as Rome faced new threats from increasingly sophisticated enemies and the logistical challenges of maintaining a vast empire. The Marian reforms were revolutionary, but they also had profound social and political consequences. The professionalization of the army led to a greater reliance on generals, who could command the loyalty of their troops and wield considerable political power. This ultimately contributed to the instability of the late Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. Despite their eventual disappearance, the legacy of the Triarii endures. They stand as a symbol of Roman discipline, resilience, and the importance of experience in warfare. Their presence on the battlefield, even as a last resort, instilled confidence in their comrades and fear in their enemies. They represented the core values of the Roman Republic: duty, courage, and unwavering commitment to the state. More broadly, the story of the Triarii provides a valuable lesson about the importance of innovation and adaptation in military history. The Romans were not inherently superior warriors. Their success was largely due to their willingness to learn from their enemies, adapt their tactics, and constantly evolve their military organization. The transition from the manipular system to the cohort-based legion, though marking the end of the Triarii, was a necessary step in maintaining Rome's military dominance. The Triarii may have faded from the battlefield, but their contribution to the Roman war machine remains undeniable. They were more than just soldiers. They were a living embodiment of Roman virtues, and their story serves as a reminder that even the most formidable military forces must adapt to survive in the ever-changing landscape of warfare. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring power of discipline, experience, and the constant pursuit of innovation. The ghost of the Triarii, spear in hand, continues to whisper a timeless lesson across the centuries, reminding us that military success is not solely about brute force, but also about the intelligent application of strategy and the unwavering commitment to adaptation. How did a unit created to protect the emperor become his greatest threat? Since the dawn of the Roman Empire, the Praetorian Guard stood as a shield of the most powerful men in the ancient world. A select force, chosen from the finest soldiers, whose sole mission was to safeguard the emperor's life. However, over time, the history of these guardians took a dark turn. What began as a loyal and disciplined force eventually became the greatest danger to those they swore to protect. How did the emperor's defenders become his executioners? Problem statement. The Praetorian Guard is one of the most enigmatic and feared military units in Roman history. Their mere presence commanded both respect and fear. They were created to protect the emperor, but over the centuries, they became an uncontrollable force, capable of deciding the fate of the empire with the tip of their swords. Unlike regular legions, which defended the empire's frontiers, the Praetorian Guard did not fight distant battles or march through conquered lands. Their war was waged in the heart of Rome, within the corridors of power, in the shadows of the palace. They were the closest force to the emperor, his advisors, his executioners, and at times his greatest threat. From their foundation under Augustus to their brutal dissolution by Constantine the Great, the Praetorians played a central role in countless intrigues, betrayals, and conspiracies. They not only protected emperors, but also chose them, sold them to the highest bidder, and even killed them when they were no longer useful. Historians have debated for centuries whether the Praetorian Guard was a necessary institution for the stability of the empire, or if, on the contrary, its corruption and ambition contributed to Rome's decline. How could a force designed to maintain order become the very source of chaos? The story of the Praetorian Guard is a testament to how absolute power can corrupt even the most loyal. In this documentary, we will explore their origins, their rise, and their downfall. We will see how they transformed from protectors into executioners, and how their influence in Roman politics left an indelible mark on history. Because in the end, the very soldiers who swore to protect the emperor were the ones who decided who would live and who would die. Before the Praetorians, Roman generals already had bodyguards, but they did not always trust them. Warfare in ancient Rome was not only fought on the battlefield, but also in the shadows, where betrayal could mean the difference between victory and death. From the earliest days of the Republic, military leaders understood that their survival depended not only on the strength of their armies, but also on those closest to them. This need gave rise to the first protective units, the direct predecessors of the feared and powerful Praetorian Guard. Problem statement: the need for personal protection was not an invention of the empire. Since the days of Rome's monarchy, military leaders had surrounded themselves with small groups of trusted warriors who escorted them both in and out of battle. These early bodyguards were chosen from among the best soldiers, and in many cases, from those who displayed the greatest loyalty to their commander. As Rome expanded, this practice evolved. During the Republic, generals often traveled with personal escorts formed from elite soldiers selected from their own troops. There was no formal organization for these units, but their role was clear: to protect their leader at all costs. One of the earliest precedents for Praetorian Guard was the Triarii, a group of soldiers chosen from Rome's allied forces. They were assigned special tasks, including protecting the general during campaigns. Later, during the time of Scipio Aemilianus, a contingent of 500 soldiers was specifically designated for his protection during the war in Hispania. Even Julius Caesar, during his campaigns, preferred to surround himself with a personal guard of Germanic cavalrymen, known for their ferocity and unwavering loyalty. The need for a reliable escort was becoming increasingly evident, but there was still no permanent protection force for Rome's rulers. The political and military chaos that plagued Rome in the final years of the Republic made one thing clear: power without protection was an invitation to betrayal. The instability, civil wars, and constant power struggles turned personal bodyguards from a luxury into a necessity. It was then that Augustus, Rome's first emperor, made a decision that would change history forever. He transformed these scattered protection units into a formal and permanent organization. Thus, the Praetorian Guard was born, a force of trusted soldiers who would not only protect the emperor, but also become a key piece in Rome's political game. What started as a defensive force would soon become a power of its own. The Praetorians would not only witness the rise and fall of emperors, they would decide their fate. The Praetorian soldiers were unlike the rest of the Roman army. They had unique privileges. While regular legionaries spent years on campaign, enduring hunger, cold, and brutal battles on the empire's frontiers, the Praetorians enjoyed a far more comfortable life in the capital. They were paid better, served for fewer years, and most importantly, their close proximity to the emperor gave them a power that no other military unit could match. But how did this group of bodyguards go from being mere protectors to becoming one of the most feared forces in Rome? Problem statement: when Augustus officially created the Praetorian Guard, he did so with a clear purpose: to consolidate his rule and ensure that no one could challenge his authority without consequences. Unlike the regular armies, which were scattered across the empire's borders, The Praetorian Guard was stationed in Italy, close to the heart of imperial power. From the very beginning, the Praetorians received special benefits that set them apart from the rest of the military. While a regular legionary had to serve for 25 years before earning a pension, a Praetorian only had to serve 16 years, making it a much more attractive career option. On top of that, their salary was significantly higher than that of a standard soldier, guaranteeing them a far more comfortable lifestyle. But it wasn't just about money and prestige. The Praetorians had direct access to the emperor, making them far more influential than any other military unit. Their commander, the Praetorian prefect, was not just a military leader, but also a close advisor to the emperor, often holding immense political power. Over time, this position became so important that some Praetorian prefects effectively ruled the empire from behind the throne, making crucial decisions that shaped Roman history. By the 1st century AD, the Praetorian Guard had solidified its authority and proved that it could do more than just protect the emperor. It could decide who ruled Rome. A perfect example of this came in 41 AD, when the Praetorians assassinated Caligula in a conspiracy involving senators and Roman elites. But the most shocking part wasn't the assassination itself. It was what happened next. Instead of allowing the Senate to restore the Republic, the Praetorians found Claudius, the timid and politically inexperienced uncle of Caligula, hiding behind a curtain in the imperial palace. In an unprecedented move, they declared him emperor themselves, proving that they, not the Senate, held the real power in Rome. From this moment on, every emperor knew one simple truth. If the Praetorian Guard was not on your side, your reign would not last long, and that loyalty had a price. The creation of the Praetorian Guard was a brilliant move by Augustus to consolidate his power, but also create a problem that no emperor could ever solve. How do you control those who have the power to overthrow you? The Praetorians were more than just soldiers. They became a privileged class within the empire. Their influence could make or break an emperor, and as their power grew, so did their ambition. What had begun as a force of protection soon turned into a political entity with its own interests. And when money and power were at stake, betrayal became just as effective as a sword. What would you do if your protector could decide whether you live or die? For Roman emperors, the Praetorian Guard was supposed to be their shield against conspiracies, or so they thought. In reality, these soldiers did not just protect the emperor. They could overthrow him if he was no longer useful. Over time, the Praetorians stopped being mere bodyguards and became a power in the shadows, capable of altering the course of Roman history with the swing of a sword. Problem statement. From its creation, the Praetorian Guard had unprecedented access to the very heart of imperial power. They were not only responsible for the emperor's security, but they also patrolled Rome, guarded the palace, and played an essential role in official ceremonies. Their presence commanded respect, but also fear. The problem arose when Praetorians realized they were not just protectors. They could choose who ruled the empire. Their first major display of power took place in 41 AD, when they participated in the assassination of Emperor Caligula, a conspiracy involving senators and members of the Roman elite. But the most shocking part was not the assassination itself. It was what happened next. Instead of allowing the Senate to restore the Republic, the Praetorians found Claudius, Caligula's timid and politically inexperienced uncle, hiding behind a curtain in the imperial palace. In an act without precedent, they proclaimed him emperor themselves, proving that they, not the Senate, were the real decision-makers in Rome. This event marked the beginning of a new era. The Praetorian Guard was no longer just a military unit. It was a political power. Over time, their influence only grew. During the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, the Praetorians actively shaped the imperial succession. In many cases, their support or rejection determined who would become the next emperor. One of the most extreme examples occurred in 193 AD, after the assassination of Emperor Pertinax. He had attempted to restore discipline within the guard after the excesses of Emperor Commodus, but his mistake was trying to reduce their privileges. In response, the Praetorians murdered him and, in an unprecedented act, auctioned off the imperial throne to the highest bidder. The winner of this disgraceful bidding war was Didius Julianus, a wealthy senator who simply offered more money than his rivals. With this act, the Praetorian Guard made one thing clear: the empire did not belong to Rome or its people. It belonged to those who could pay for their loyalty. The Praetorian Guard had become the ultimate power broker in Rome. They were no longer mere soldiers. They were the true kingmakers of the empire. Their loyalty was not based on duty or honor, but on whoever could offer them the greatest rewards and privileges. With every coup, with every emperor assassinated or sold to the highest bidder, the Praetorians weakened the empire's stability. What had begun as a force designed to protect Rome had turned into a destabilizing power. But there was one flaw in their strategy. By controlling the empire, they had made themselves too powerful, and when a force becomes too powerful, someone will always try to take it down. Sooner or later, the Praetorian Guard would face its greatest challenge, not from an emperor, but from a ruler who had no intention of negotiating with them. What happens when the soldiers who are supposed to protect you start selling their loyalty to the highest bidder? For Roman emperors, the Praetorian Guard went from being a reliable shield to a constant threat. It didn't matter how strong, wise, or popular a ruler was. If he failed to keep the Praetorians happy, his fate was sealed. As their ambition and corruption grew, the Guard ceased to be a protective force and became the empire's greatest political cancer. Problem statement. The assassination of emperors and the sale of the imperial throne marked the beginning of the Praetorian Guard's final decline. By the 3rd century AD, their corruption had reached extreme levels. No longer a unit loyal to the empire, they had become high-priced mercenaries, manipulating Roman politics for their own benefit. One of the most scandalous examples took place in 193 AD, after the murder of Emperor Pertinax. In a scene that resembled a modern auction, the Praetorian Guard put the imperial throne up for sale. Two candidates, Didius Julianus and Titus Flavius Sulpicianus, competed to win their favor, offering more and more money in exchange for their support. In the end, Julianus won with a staggering bid of 25,000 sesterces for each Praetorian soldier, an astronomical sum that secured his place as emperor, but also sealed his doom. The people of Rome were outraged. How could the empire be treated as a mere commodity? The reaction was swift. Provincial generals, who still commanded loyal legions, refused to recognize an emperor who had simply bought his way to the throne. A civil war erupted. Within months, the general Septimius Severus marched into Rome, defeated Julianus, and punished Praetorians for their treachery. Severus disbanded the existing guard, replacing them with soldiers from his own legions. But the problem didn't disappear. Over time, other emperors tried different methods to control the Praetorians, bribing them, offering privileges, or even threatening them directly. However, the damage had already been done. By the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire was spiraling into what is now known as the crisis of the 3rd century, a period of civil wars, foreign invasions, and emperors who barely lasted a few months in power. Rather than stabilizing Rome, the Praetorian Guard had become one of the main causes of its instability. The Praetorian Guard had ceased to be a military force and had transformed into a political mafia. Their loyalty was no longer based on duty, but on who could pay the highest price. Their ambition not only weakened the imperial throne, but also shattered the people's trust in Rome's rulers. By this point, the Praetorians were no longer soldiers. They were mercenaries of power. And like any mercenary, their time was running out. Rome could only tolerate corruption for so long. Sooner or later, someone would take action against them. And when that moment came, the Praetorian Guard would face its greatest challenge yet, its own destruction. After centuries of dominating Rome, someone had to put an end to them. The Praetorian Guard had been untouchable for generations. They had murdered emperors, sold the throne to the highest bidder, and used their power to enrich themselves at the expense of the empire. But in the 4th century, their arrogance led them to make their greatest mistake, challenging a man who had no intention of negotiating. Constantine the Great. Problem statement. The decline of the Praetorian Guard had begun long before its dissolution, but it was in the 4th century AD that their fate was sealed. By this time, Rome was no longer the same. The empire was divided, and internal struggles were fiercer than ever. In 306 AD, following the death of Emperor Constantius Chlorus, his son Constantine was proclaimed emperor by his troops in Britannia. However, in Rome, the Praetorian Guard supported another candidate, Maxentius, who declared himself emperor with the backing of the Praetorians and the senatorial elite. For 6 years, the empire was split between Constantine and Maxentius, with the Praetorian Guard acting as a key power in Rome. But in 312 AD, Constantine decided to end the dispute once and for all. He gathered his army and marched into Italy, facing Maxentius in the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. The battle was decisive. Constantine achieved a crushing victory, and Maxentius drowned in the Tiber River while trying to escape. With their emperor dead, the Praetorians found themselves completely exposed. They had no one left to protect them. When Constantine entered Rome as the undisputed ruler, he made one thing clear: there will be no mercy for the Praetorian Guard. As punishment for supporting Maxentius, he ordered the complete dissolution of the Guard. Their barracks in Rome were destroyed, their soldiers were either executed or dispersed into the regular legions, and their centuries-long reign of power came to an abrupt and humiliating end. It was the end of the Praetorian Guard. After more than 300 years, the force that had protected and betrayed emperors was erased from history with a single decree. The dissolution of the Praetorian Guard marked the end of an era. For centuries, they had been the most feared force within the empire, but their corruption and ambition had sealed their fate. The fact that Constantine could eliminate them without resistance proves how much they had declined. What had once been a prestigious force had become a group of mercenaries with no real purpose. However, their disappearance did not mean the end of military influence in Roman politics. In the following centuries, other groups, such as provincial generals and barbarian mercenaries, would take their place. The struggle for power in Rome never ended. It simply changed hands. Was the Praetorian Guard the greatest betrayal of the empire they swore to protect? For over 3 centuries, these soldiers were much more than mere bodyguards. They were the shadow of the emperors, the power behind the throne, the executioners, and the rulers of Rome from the shadows. But in the end, their corruption and ambition led to their downfall. Their story serves as a reminder of an uncomfortable truth. When power has no limits, loyalty becomes just another commodity. Problem statement. The Praetorian Guard was one of the most influential and controversial institutions in Roman history. Created to protect the stability of the empire, it ultimately did the exact opposite. The Praetorians turned imperial politics into a game of survival, where only those willing to pay for their loyalty could stay in power. While their destruction under Constantine ended centuries of Praetorian abuse, one question remains: were they truly responsible for Rome's instability, or were they just a symptom of a much deeper problem? The Praetorian Guard did not exist in isolation. Their power was a reflection of a system where absolute power bred distrust and conspiracies. The emperors who surrounded themselves with them knew that their authority depended on keeping them happy. In many cases, it was the rulers themselves who corrupted the Guard, granting them excessive privileges to buy their loyalty. However, their disappearance did not solve Rome's problems. After them, other military factions took control of the imperial succession. In the centuries that followed, legionary generals became the new power brokers, triggering civil wars and internal conflicts that weakened the empire even further. The story of the Praetorian Guard is not just an episode from the past. It is a warning about the relationship between power and corruption, a pattern that has repeated itself throughout history in different empires and governments. The Praetorians started as protectors and ended as executioners. Their legacy is not just in the emperors they helped rise and fall, but in the lesson they left behind. When a military force gains too much power within a government, sooner or later, it stops serving the state and begins serving itself. Their story shows us that unchecked ambition can destroy even the most powerful institutions. The Roman Empire may have withstood centuries of invasions and conflicts, But what truly weakened it was its internal struggles. Ultimately, the Praetorian Guard is a perfect example of how an institution born with the best intentions can become the greatest enemy of the very system it was meant to protect. The legions of Rome, instrument of conquest and the bedrock of imperial power, were composed of men who dedicated their lives to the service of the state. Decades spent marching across continents, enduring hardship, and witnessing unimaginable violence culminated in a moment of transition, retirement. But for the Roman legionary, did this signify an end to a life of war, or merely the beginning of a new chapter, fraught with its own unique challenges and opportunities? The popular image of the battle-hardened veteran fading into obscurity is a gross simplification. The reality was far more nuanced, a tapestry woven from privilege, hardship, and unexpected reinvention. The average legionary served for at least 25 years, often more, by the time their service concluded. They were men in their 40s or 50s, their bodies scarred by countless campaigns, their minds shaped by the brutal realities of military life. Imagine a man accustomed to the unwavering discipline and structured existence of the legion, thrust back into the unpredictable currents of civilian life. The skills honed in warfare, swordsmanship, siegecraft, and logistics held little practical value in the field of agriculture or the bustling marketplaces of Rome. The psychological impact of years spent witnessing death and destruction should not be underestimated. Many veterans struggle with the transition, grappling with the absence of camaraderie, the loss of purpose, and the pervasive anxieties of a post-traumatic existence. The question that gnawed at the heart of Roman society was, what became of these men? Did the state adequately provide for those who had given so much? The Roman state, acutely aware of the potential for social unrest stemming from disgruntled veterans, developed a sophisticated system of support. Retirement was not simply an abrupt cessation of service. It involved a carefully orchestrated process, often including a significant financial settlement, known as donativum, a substantial sum that allowed for a degree of economic security. More importantly, veterans were often granted land, a crucial element for establishing a stable life. This land allocation, however, was not always equitable. The distribution process was frequently fraught with political maneuvering and corruption, with powerful individuals often securing the most fertile tracts. The promise of a peaceful agrarian existence was frequently undermined by the harsh realities of farming, particularly for those without the necessary capital or experience to cultivate their land effectively. This system, designed to ensure social stability, often fell short of its idealistic goals. However, the narrative of a retiring legionary is not solely one of struggle and hardship. The military experience, far from being a liability, often proved to be an asset. The discipline, leadership skills, and organizational abilities honed within the legions were highly sought after in civilian life. Many veterans found themselves thriving in positions of authority, taking on roles as administrators, tax collectors, or even entering politics. Furthermore, the network of comradeship forged within the legions continued to provide support and opportunities long after their retirement. Some veterans, driven by a lifelong commitment to the military ideal or simply the absence of viable alternatives, re-enlisted, often in roles of authority, bringing their experience and expertise to training newer generations of recruits, effectively moving to a higher echelon within the military structure itself. They became, in effect, the backbone of the military system, shaping the next generation of legionaries. The lives of Roman legionaries after retirement present a complex and multifaceted picture. While the state endeavored to provide for its veterans through land grants and financial rewards, the realities faced by these men were far from uniform. Some struggled to adapt to civilian life, while others found success and influence beyond the battlefield. The story of the retired legionary serves as a testament to the enduring capacity of the human spirit to adapt, persevere, and reinvent itself, even in the face of extraordinary challenges. Their experiences remind us that the legacy of warfare extends far beyond the clash of arms, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of individuals and the shape of societies for generations to come. Why would a soldier, honorably discharged after years of loyal service to the Roman legions, willingly return to the rigors of military life? The answer lies not in simple patriotism, nor in a thirst for glory, but in a unique position within the Roman military structure, the Evocati. These were not mere legionaries, plucked from the ranks of freshly recruited conscripts. The Evocati were a distinct class, a carefully curated group of veteran soldiers, men who had earned their release from active service with exemplary conduct and proven battlefield prowess. Their experience was invaluable. Their skills honed to a razor's edge through years of brutal training and countless campaigns across the vast Roman Empire. Rome, however, considered these men far too valuable to simply let them fade into civilian life. Their expertise was a strategic asset too significant to be relinquished. The Roman military machine, at the height of its power, relied on a system of rigorous discipline and constant preparedness. While legions provided the backbone of the Roman army, the Evocati represented a crucial reserve force, a readily deployable elite unit capable of swift and decisive action in times of crisis. Their presence on the battlefield acted as a powerful morale booster, inspiring confidence in both fellow soldiers and intimidated enemies alike. These were not men who needed to be taught the fundamentals of warfare. They were masters of their craft, capable of leading and inspiring others with their sheer experience. The process of becoming an evocatus was not automatic. It wasn't simply a matter of completing one's term of service. Commanders carefully identified those soldiers who consistently demonstrated exceptional leadership, tactical acumen, and battlefield courage. These individuals possessed an intangible quality: the ability to inspire unwavering loyalty and confidence in their fellow soldiers, even amidst the chaos and brutality of war. They were the seasoned veterans who had seen it all, survived the worst, and emerged stronger and wiser from the crucible of countless battles. Their reputation preceded them, a whisper among the ranks, a testament to their unwavering skill and unwavering loyalty. The Evocati were not merely a reserve. They were a strategic weapon, a highly trained and motivated force that could be rapidly deployed to quell rebellions, reinforce wavering legions, or bolster a critical campaign. They represented the accumulated tactical wisdom and combat experience of the Roman army, a living embodiment of the legion's power and prowess. Their role underscored the Roman army's appreciation for experience and leadership, a recognition that the most valuable asset on the battlefield was not just raw manpower, but seasoned skill, unwavering discipline, and the inspirational force of battle-hardened veterans. Their existence demonstrates the Roman understanding of the importance of leveraging expertise, forming a highly specialized reserve that ensured the enduring effectiveness of the Roman military machine, even in its most challenging moments. The Evocati were the ultimate testament to the Roman military's dedication to excellence and its strategic foresight in preserving and utilizing its most valuable resource, its elite veterans. What did the Evocati possess that eluded their fellow legionaries? The Roman army, a machine of seemingly unwavering efficiency, relied on a complex hierarchy. While the legions were comprised largely of common soldiers, often drawn from the lower echelons of Roman society, a select few ascended to a position of considerable privilege. The Evocati. These were not simply superior soldiers. They represented a distinct class within the military structure, enjoying a status and treatment markedly different from the rank and file. Unlike the common legionary, toiling endlessly under the harsh realities of military life, enduring menial tasks and the brutal rigors of campaigning, the Evocati occupied a realm apart. They were not burdened with the same backbreaking labor, nor did they share the cramped, often squalid conditions of the ordinary soldier's existence. This stark contrast raises a crucial question. What earned them this preferential treatment? Was it simply superior martial skill, or did something more profound differentiate them? The answer lies not in brute force alone, but in a subtle combination of experience, loyalty, and strategic value. The key to understanding the Evocati's privileged position lies in their assigned roles. They were not relegated to the ranks of the ordinary infantrymen, performing the mundane yet essential duties of camp maintenance or supply transport. Instead, they were strategically positioned within the legionary structure to fulfill highly specialized and crucial functions. Their experience, often honed over years of service, made them invaluable assets. Many Evocati served as instructors, training new recruits in the essential skills of Roman warfare, ensuring the continued competence and effectiveness of the legions. Their mastery of military tactics and discipline made them indispensable in shaping the fighting force. Furthermore, their prestige extended beyond training. Evocati frequently held positions of significant responsibility. Acting as standard bearers, their presence a visible symbol of authority and legionary pride. This symbolic role extended to their administrative functions. The intricacies of legionary logistics and record-keeping demanded skill and attention to detail. The Evocati, with their accumulated experience and proven trustworthiness, often managed these vital aspects of legionary life, providing crucial support to the centurions and higher officers. Their elevated status, however, was not simply bestowed. It was earned through unwavering loyalty and proven competence. The Evocati represented the pinnacle of Roman military dedication, a testament to their skill, experience, and unwavering commitment to Rome. They were not merely soldiers. They were an elite corps, their influence extending beyond the battlefield into the very fabric of the legion's operation and administration. Their unique position serves as a compelling illustration of the complex social dynamics within the Roman army and the sophisticated strategies employed to maintain its effectiveness and power. The story of the Evocati underscores that success in the Roman army was not solely about physical strength, but also about a combination of skills, experience, and unwavering allegiance to the Roman cause. Their privilege was not a birthright, but a reward, a testament to their exceptional contributions to the might of the Roman Empire. How did the Evocati, those veteran soldiers granted honorable discharge yet ever ready to serve again, influence some of Rome's most pivotal wars? Their story is not one of continuous presence, but crucial intervention, a testament to the enduring loyalty and battle-hardened skill they brought to the Republic and later the Empire. Rome's reliance on the Evocati wasn't a constant state. Rather, it was a carefully calibrated response to crises. The legions, the backbone of the Roman military machine, were a powerful force, but even they sometimes faced insurmountable challenges. It was in moments of acute peril, during critical junctures and desperate battles, that the seasoned veterans, the Evocati, were called upon to shore up failing lines, provide crucial expertise, and inject a dose of hard-won experience into otherwise faltering campaigns. Consider the tumultuous years of Boudicca's rebellion in Britannia, a furious uprising that threatened to unravel Roman control over the recently conquered province. Or consider the devastating impact of the Roman civil wars, where seasoned veterans' loyalties were tested, and the expertise of the Evocati became a potent weapon in the hands of competing generals. The contribution of the Evocati transcended mere numbers. It was a qualitative difference that proved decisive in several key battles throughout Roman history. Their impact wasn't limited to a specific period. It spanned the entirety of Rome's expansion from the late Republic into the solidified empire. Their influence was felt in multiple theaters of war. Let's delve into the specifics. The Gallic Wars, while showcasing the formidable strength of Caesar's legions, also witnessed the strategic deployment of Evocati. Their experience in previous campaigns, their intimate knowledge of different terrains and enemy tactics, provided invaluable support, especially in unconventional warfare scenarios. These veterans understood the nuances of siege warfare, cavalry tactics, and the particular challenges posed by diverse enemies. Their leadership, often assuming roles as centurions or even higher ranks, provided a vital framework for maintaining discipline and bolstering morale within the ranks of newly recruited legionaries. The tumultuous period following Caesar's assassination saw the brutal Roman civil wars erupt. Mark Antony and Octavian, vying for control of the Roman world, both understood the value of experienced troops. The Evocati, their loyalty often bought with promises of land and rewards, swung the balance of power in several key engagements. Their tactical expertise proved invaluable in both pitched battles and siege warfare, swaying the tide in favor of their chosen leader, making them pivotal in determining the ultimate victor and the shape of the future Roman Empire. The conquest of Britannia was far from a smooth affair. Boudicca's rebellion, a brutal uprising fueled by resentment and spurred by Roman oppression, threw the legions into disarray. The Evocati, many of whom had experience in similar campaigns against rebellious tribes, played a crucial role in restoring order and suppressing the rebellion. Their knowledge of guerrilla warfare techniques and their ability to instill discipline and restore morale proved essential in turning the tide against Boudicca's forces. Their steadfast loyalty and experience provided a crucial counterbalance to the initial Roman setbacks, enabling a swift and effective response to crisis. The Evocati's legacy extends beyond specific battles. They represent a vital, though often overlooked, element of Rome's military might. They weren't just soldiers. They were experienced commanders, instructors, and mentors who shaped Roman military doctrine and strategy. Their impact on the development of Roman military capabilities should not be underestimated. Their story underscores the importance of veteran experience and military success, reminding us that military prowess isn't just about numbers, but about the quality, skill, and unwavering loyalty of those who fight for the empire. Their contributions ensured Roman victories, shaped Roman expansion, and ultimately played a critical role in the long, complicated history of the Roman Empire. How did the Evocati, veterans of proven valor, rise to occupy the highest echelons of the Roman army? Their exceptional service, initially a matter of individual merit, eventually carved a unique niche for them within the rigidly hierarchical Roman military structure. The answer lies not merely in their battlefield prowess, but in a subtle interplay of skill, loyalty, and the ever-shifting political landscape of the Roman Republic and Empire. The legions of Rome, the backbone of its power, were renowned for their discipline and effectiveness. Yet, within this formidable force, a select group stood apart, the Evocati. These were not simply veteran legionaries. They were chosen veterans, men whose service had been so exemplary that they were specifically invited back into active service after completing their term of enlistment. This invitation, an evocatio, was a mark of exceptional distinction, a testament to unmatched bravery, tactical acumen, or unwavering loyalty. Unlike the common legionary, bound by a fixed term, the Evocati serve at the pleasure of their commander, often for extended periods, offering unparalleled experience and reliability. Initially, the Evocati's presence was felt primarily within the legions themselves. Their superior combat experience and leadership qualities rapidly propelled many into positions of authority. While promotion to the ranks remained the standard route for legionaries, the Evocati often bypassed many steps, directly assuming command positions like centurion. This wasn't simply a matter of favoritism. The Evocati's expertise made them invaluable assets, and their presence boosted the morale and combat efficacy of their units. Their influence extended beyond mere battlefield command. Their wisdom and seasoned perspective made them vital advisors to senior officers, shaping strategy and contributing to the overall success of military campaigns. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguard, represented the pinnacle of military prestige within the Roman Empire. Selection into this elite cohort was fiercely competitive, demanding not only impeccable physical condition and martial skill, but also unshakable loyalty to the emperor. Given the significance of their role, guarding the emperor's life and maintaining order within the capital, the Praetorian Guard's ranks were carefully curated. It is within this exclusive circle that the Evocati's influence reached its zenith. Their unparalleled experience and proven loyalty made them uniquely suited for the highest ranks within the Praetorian Guard. While the majority of the Guard were drawn from the ranks of the legions, the Evocati were often recruited directly, bypassing the typical selection process. This marked a significant shift. They were no longer just respected veterans. They were now part of the imperial elite, holding positions of immense power and influence. The trajectory of an evocatus within the Praetorian Guard could lead to extraordinary heights. Many rose to become senior centurions, commanding cohorts and exercising authority far exceeding that of their legionary counterparts. Some even held positions of significant command within the Guard's overall hierarchy. Their influence wasn't limited to the purely military sphere. Given their close proximity to the emperor, several Evocati exerted considerable political influence, serving as advisors and confidants, shaping imperial policy, and playing crucial roles in court intrigues. The Evocati's journey from seasoned legionaries to the highest echelons of the Roman military, particularly within the Praetorian Guard, stands as a testament to their exceptional abilities and the Roman army's recognition of merit. Their story underscores the importance of experience and loyalty within a hierarchical military structure and reveals how, in the heart of the Roman Empire, individual achievements could translate into significant power and influence. Their rise, far from being a mere anomaly, highlights a sophisticated system of recruitment and advancement that rewarded exceptional service and helped solidify the might of the Roman military machine. Why did the Evocati remain a paradigm of discipline and leadership, even centuries after the fall of the Roman Empire? The answer lies not simply in their exceptional military prowess, but in their multifaceted role within the intricate machinery of Roman power. Their story, often relegated to footnotes in history books, reveals crucial insights into the enduring strength and inherent vulnerabilities of the Roman military machine. The common perception of the Evocati, veteran legionaries allowed to re-enlist in a prestigious auxiliary unit, fails to capture the full complexity of their contribution. They weren't merely retired soldiers seeking a second career. They were a vital cog in a Roman imperial system, a force multiplier that shaped the trajectory of Roman expansion and governance. Their influence extended far beyond the battlefield, permeating the social, political, and economic landscapes of the empire. Their unique status, a blend of military expertise and civilian integration, warrants a closer examination to understand their true significance. The standard narrative often portrays a Roman army as a monolithic entity, a disciplined force driven by a shared Roman identity. However, the Evocati disrupt this simplistic view. Their diverse origins, encompassing various tribes and conquered populations, highlight the empire's sophisticated methods of incorporating foreign elements into its military structure. Their presence underscores the adaptability and pragmatism of the Roman military machine, able to leverage the skills and loyalty of conquered peoples to enhance its overall effectiveness. They were not simply Roman citizens in uniform. They represented a complex interplay of assimilation and strategic recruitment, a microcosm of the Roman imperial project itself. The impact of the Evocati on Roman military history is undeniable. Their experience and leadership skills provided invaluable support to younger, less seasoned legions. Their presence within auxiliary units, often deployed to strategically sensitive areas, provided a crucial layer of security and stability. Their specialized knowledge, particularly in areas like siege warfare and cavalry tactics, proved decisive in countless battles and campaigns across the vast Roman territories. Furthermore, their role extended beyond combat operations. Many Evocati served as instructors, trainers, and even administrators, disseminating Roman military doctrine and contributing to the continuity of Roman military expertise across generations. Their legacy extends beyond the purely military realm. Their integration into Roman society, albeit with distinctions, showcases the empire's capacity to manage and utilize the skills of its veterans effectively. Unlike many other ancient empires that struggled to reintegrate their veterans into civilian life, Rome, through the Evocati system, found a successful mechanism for harnessing their experience and loyalty for long-term benefit. This system speaks to the empire's strategic understanding of manpower management and its ability to adapt its institutions to maintain stability and effectiveness.